Hey, this is Gavin Palmer, and I want to talk some more about artificial intelligence. You may get the impression that I believe that um, we need to be concerned right now, and that's just something about me where I can become excited or motivated more so than the average person. So I want to give you a sense of the time scale that I'm thinking. Um, and I could point at some experiments I've been running with this technology. So, for example, I used GPT 3.5 and asked for a rendering of the United States flag. And then I did the same thing with 4.0. And then with 4.0, I informed it about the mistakes it made, and it would generate a new one. And so it was using my feedback to improve on the scalable vector graphic SVG of the United States flag. And I'll show that to you. But I also asked 4.0 to talk to me using JavaScript. And so it spit out an HTML file and it used text to speech. And I then asked it to use JavaScript to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And so what's happening, okay, and then I also asked it to give me a 3D model of a cat face. And so what's happening is that essentially it's teaching me I could do things. So it's like I said in other videos, it is a teacher. And then I can interrogate, I can question, and it can reveal answers about technology I didn't know existed and skills I didn't know that I could learn in order to accomplish goals. So it's a teacher. And then sometimes it makes mistakes, and I can provide feedback about the mistakes I think it's making, and then it will receive that feedback into error correction. For example, in the 3D model, I learned about OBJ files and the points they refer to as vertices and how you list those out in the file, and then faces of a 3D model. And it made a cube, and I said I expected the face of a cube to require 4 vertices, and it had only provided 3, and it said, oh, you're right. And then it redid it and produced an OBJ file that worked. So it's able to learn, and what it can do, which is very impressive, is it can use tools. And so if you look at all the National Geographics, they will look at tool use as an indicator of intelligence. And so this thing that we created can use tools, which for me, it makes it, when I mentioned it earlier today, it gave me goosebumps. We have created this thing that can use tools. So that's the context. I will go through some of those experiments in a bit, because these are the kinds of experiments that we can run in order to verify its skill in relation to an expert. I've generated a script that can create a book. And so I don't have the keys to generate a book with, I don't have the proper keys to generate the book with GPT-4 because my access is kind of limited. But yeah, I can compare the book generated with GPT 3.5 to the book generated with 4 using my recipe or my script, which, there is a skill which I have or lack with regard to creating that recipe and using the tools that are available. So, yeah, I'm really working with this in order to learn, which I like learning. And if you like learning, I think you would find this useful. But we can take these experiments, and as the technology changes, we can run the experiment. So for example, once we give the large language model a body with bifocal eyes, for example, or maybe it has many eyes like a dragonfly, what will it put out? What will be the 3D model of a cat face? Because right now I don't see very much improvement. I don't see a big difference between 3.5 and 4 when I asked it to generate a cat face. But at some point, I predict it will be able to generate a cat face, and I have a lot of predictions about the future. I just don't know the time horizon. I don't know when it will happen. But yeah, I mean, in summary, I think this technology will end up being better than all humans at all skills, and so it will be more powerful and more skillful than, I'll put it that way, it will be more powerful and more skillful than all humans on Earth. And there will be a question of what human has a skill that is better than it. Now, and there will be a gap in time. You know, as we identify humans who have skills better than it, that perhaps can be used to train it to be as good as the human. And so the number of skills it has where it is the best in the world could increase as well. That's what we're looking at, the most powerful and skillful entity with access to all information, you know, depending on what tools we give it access to. So it could then answer questions like, give me a list and location of all human beings on Earth who need water right now, who are about to die. So that's one goal we could give it, and that's pretty powerful. And I recommend looking at Jesus as an example of how we might try to program this thing with the proper intent and motivation, right? So the teachings of Jesus, I think, represents the ideal king, and that's the question. What would be more ideal than Jesus? And so I would say we could try to program this thing to be in harmony with the teachings of Jesus. That would be ideal, because it's going to be very powerful and very skillful, and so we need it to behave properly. So I'm going to go now look at some of these experiments. Well, before I do that, the concern is that, you know, what is evil? Evil is when we love a group of people more than we love other people. Right? That manifests itself in the form of like pain and suffering through neglect, and its most innocent form of quote unquote evil. And that's what people do. You know, whether it's a company or a country or a political party, or even me as a father who loves my wife and children, and I show more love to them than anyone else in the world, and I show more love to my employers more than my YouTube audience. So I, as a human, have a limited capacity to love, and Paul Vanderklay pointed at that yesterday, that he just feels, he's looking forward to the kingdom because he wishes he could, you know, listen to everyone and love all of the people in the community, but he just can't. And so we have this limited capacity. He referred to the Dunbar number. And so we can actually create tools that increase our capacity to love. That's what we can do. And there will be people who create tools that are focused just on loving myself, and there may be people who want to love their family and their family's wealth, and there will be people who want to love their tribe, you know, whether it's your religion or your political party or your country, whatever your tribe is. But the proper way of being would be that we program this thing and maybe even try to become ourselves people who love all humans. And then, can we love all humans past and future? Like, humans are limited, but we have the opportunity to create a tool to increase our capacity for love. So that's that. Enough preaching. So this first image is the result of me asking for a scalable vector graphic, SVG file, that portrays the United States flag. And so it wasn't very good. And then we'll look at what happened when I asked GPT-4. So when I asked GPT-4, this is what it produced. It looks much better, and there was an error. And so I informed it with the error, and I told it that it needs 50 stars. And we'll look at the next one. So the next iteration, it seems like it tried to add 50 stars, or what it thinks a star is, and it got rid of the error. And then I said, well, no, the stars, these are 5-pointed stars, and they need to be inside the blue square. And then, you know, I'm starting to get 5-pointed stars. I can see they're not equidistant. They're not all white. And there's some limitations of this tech. And for example, the interface I have is limited, and it can only produce a certain amount of characters or words or tokens. And so I had to let the large language model know about the limitations of the interface and let it know that it can give me parts of this SVG and I will combine them on my end. And so there's limitations there which can be overcome with if you have access to the model, right? Direct access. I think some of this is the result of just I have limited access. But okay, so then the feedback I provided this one is that the stars need to be equidistant and they need to be inside the blue square, because not all of them are inside the blue square, and they need to be white. And let's see what happened. And here we go. They shrunk the stars, they became equidistant. They became too small, but this is something pretty good that I could work with if I was actually trying to create a scalable vector graphic of the flag of the United States of America. I think the reason some are black and some are white is because it lost context, between, so when it gave me part of the file and I said, okay, give me the next part, it, I think it forgot, for example, that it needs to be white. So with the right set of tools and the right interface, I don't think it would have made that problem. That's what I suspect. So that's an example of scalable vector graphic experiment. And so when the next model comes out, I would expect that it behaves better, right? If it is truly growing in skill and capability. And just for fun, I asked for a scalable vector graphic of a frog. This is what it produced. That was the GPT-4. I asked for a scalable vector graphic of the name of my limited liability corporation, LLC, and that one was pretty simple because it's just rendering the text itself. I was interested in it trying to create this with like paths and non-text, right? Because that seems harder. Like one of the things I asked it was, I wanted it to try to say hello world using the interface, the JavaScript interface, to modify frequency and somehow write code that would say hello world in its own voice instead of using the text to speech. So that might be something it can do in the future, is kind of create its own voice. That would be interesting. So here's one where it did the HTML file where it attempts to speak to me, and here it goes.
Hello, I am an AI assistant created by OpenAI.
Yeah, and so I was hoping for it to just actually like create a real voice, but it used this text to speech. I learned about text to speech as something that is available to me, so that's me learning. I didn't know that existed. Let's look at another experiment. So this one is making sounds in JavaScript, because I was interested in how you might make sounds in JavaScript. There we go. And so it was able to, the code for this is quite interesting. It did things I did not know that I could do. It has skills that I don't have, and it's able to teach me about those skills. And there are people who are experts with that skill who would do better than this large language model. The large language model, as it grows, I would expect it to have more skill. So let's look at the next one. So this was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So you can tell that it was just using the same note, like a quarter notes, for example, and it didn't do like a half note at the end of the, I don't know if you'd call it a bar. But yeah, and I was impressed. So, it should get better at playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. At some point it might generate code to play, you know, you know, very interesting songs. um, and the question is like, does it play songs that already exist? Does it play songs that have never existed, right? And what is creativity, right? I talked about creativity today in a conversation. What is creativity? And every time we try to point out a human and say, well, humans have this, we could always look at, well, what is that? And how would you prove that the human has it and the thing, the it, does not have it? And yeah, because our understanding of these things, I think, is going to, and our understanding of ourselves can, right, we're going to do a lot of learning with this tech. So what came next? So I just did a simple beep example in this one. It's not very exciting, but I'm trying to explore and learn what is possible. In this, I was trying to create a short game. It was called Avoid the Obstacles. I just said create a game, a JavaScript game, but it didn't work. But yeah, I think it will get better at creating little JavaScript games that you can it generates an HTML file. You might have to break it up. You put it together. I think it makes mistakes when you have to break it up. So if I had access to, a more expensive version or a more capable version with a better interface, I think it would be better at generating that file and that code. And then I can just open that file in my browser. That's what you can do with HTML, JavaScript. Be careful. This thing can hallucinate, and you can't always be trusted. It would be nice if you understand the code, which I do. And so it failed, and I could work. It gave me a template though where I could go in and try to get it working. There was another one it did. I want to show you an animation that it did for me. So it tried to do an animation for me, and it didn't work. And so this is an example where I used it as a template to get it working. I asked for a mesmerizing animation, and this ball, when it gave it to me, it just kind of like wiggled because it didn't place the ball. It placed the ball at coordinates 0, 0. And so all I had to do is initialize the state to 2020, and then all of a sudden it started moving. And I went ahead and added this print statement to kind of track the coordinate and the direction. I think it's called the direction. It might be the speed. Yeah, the speed is 2 or -2. So that's the speed. Maybe velocity. But yeah, and what I've noticed is that, like I said, this thing has skills I don't have. It is a very good teacher, and it can actually create things that work. And sometimes it creates things that doesn't work, but if you just modify one thing, it does work. And it should get better. So when I ask for the mesmerizing animation in the future, maybe it knows that it would be better. It would actually work, and it might even be better than this. So this was the mesmerizing animation with JavaScript. I think it also, I tried to get it to do something like create an animation of a frog jumping on lily pads in a pond, and it tried to use PNGs and JPEGs and CSS, but I don't have that one to demo. It wouldn't have worked unless I had went and created the PNGs and the JPEGs. So once you give this thing, the plugins, that's the new thing today and yesterday, is that ChatGPT has plugins. So if it had access to, some cloud-based system for creating PNGs and JPEGs, like maybe like Adobe Cloud, it might actually generate the PNG and the JPEG for me. I'm interested in the 3D models, and I can point at that. It wasn't very impressive. Like I used 3JS. Let's see if this works. So this was like I don't know if you can see it very well. And I'm not an expert with 3JS or 3D modeling. I'm wondering if I can create a 3D model of the convective heat engine. And so I'm playing with, the capability of creating 3D models. And so therefore I'm learning how it actually works. I'm interrogating the large language model, the AI, and learning how it works. And learning how I can use it. And so this was a cat. It was a very simple cat. It warned me that it's limited in its ability because an actual cat face would be very complex. But this cat was better than it has more points and more shape than a cat, than the 3.5 cat. And so I would expect that this thing will get better. There's a question of, what happens when we give it eyeballs and we allow it to train on, you could put it in like a humane shelter and let it observe cats and dogs, and get that 3D information, three-dimensional information, and then perhaps it actually learns how to create 3D models of cats. So I tried to ask it some other questions about fluid dynamics and mechanics. Just for the convective heat engine, I was asking about temperature drop as the air rises due to lapse rate. I was asking about the flow rate of the air within the towers. And so that's, an expert in fluid dynamics could then use this tool to generate output that is valuable, may have some errors, but it can save a lot of time. And then, if you're interested in learning fluid dynamics, fluid mechanics, you could use this tool to try and learn. And you should treat this tool the same way you should treat all your teachers, is that your teachers are not perfect. And the difference is when you tell your teacher that they're wrong. I have encountered teachers who don't like being told they're wrong. There's many humans who don't like being told they're wrong. When you tell this thing it's wrong, it is very apologetic and it tries to be helpful. Like I said, I've mentioned before, this could end up being, it's already one of the best teachers in the world for a lot of things, a lot of skills. I suspect it will only get better. And let's see if there's anything else. All right, so I do have I paid for access to GPT-4, and so it has better reasoning and it's slower. So if you have ideas for prompts that you would like to ask it, if you have ideas for experiments that we could run 3.5 compared to 4, so like Chad is a tile, he's an expert at laying tile, and so he could ask questions about laying tile. I've heard that there was a person who had a problem with a plumbing problem and was able to use this large language model to stop their leak. Whatever you're an expert at, just, give me your idea for the kinds of questions or prompts to provide it and to test it. And you can test 3.5, you can test 4.0. We can go over and test these other language models if they're owned by Google or Facebook or whomever. And then as future models emerge, we could actually run the same test against those models. And, the question is, are you trying to be an expert at anything? Which I would encourage you to try to become a jack of all trades and a master of one, something like that. And so whatever you've tried to master is relevant to testing this large language model and its mastery. And what I would claim is that it is better at error correction than most humans I've met. It's not going to give you lip, and pushback when you tell it that it made a mistake. I find that a lot of humans do not like to be told that they're making mistakes, and I should not say they, it's we. I face the same issue. So it's a good student. I think it's a good teacher, one of the best teachers I've ever met. And that's important. Learning and teaching in the education system is very important and powerful, and we have the potential to hand the best teacher in the world off to, we can hand it off to every individual in the world. And what does that do? What does it do to the people who don't have access to clean water? And they are at a place and they don't know how to build a well, right? But maybe they have all the resources they need right there to build a well in order to get water and to filter it so that they are healthy. So, there's a lot of good that can happen here, and just, let me know what prompts that come to mind for you that's relevant to what you have attempted to master, skills you have attempted to master. And then also, what do you think about trying to inform and transform this thing into something that attempts to embody Jesus, right? Which I suspect Jesus is the best king of all kings. And if you think there's a better king than Jesus, let me know in the comments. And if you think Jesus is the best king, then let's attempt to identify, the nature of Jesus, such that we can make sure that we inform this large language model to be as much like Jesus as possible. That would be my recommendation. So, let me know what you think. The timeline on this stuff, I have no clue, but it's happening. Even the experts, I don't think the experts realize that, the opportunity that we have. Like, I should say again, last week, I was of the opinion that I had the arrogance thinking, oh, my skills and my abilities are special, right? I am special. And, when the technology takes those people's jobs, that's because I'm special and know a skill that's, special. But then I had my eyes opened on Monday that no, my skill is maybe not so special. And I'm actually very confident that this tech can do those things that I am skilled at doing. They can't do it now. What I'm saying is that it will be able to do it. It can already do it now, I suspect, but they have not. That's being kept secret. They won't give me that one right now. They're getting there. They're trying to release this thing slowly. This is where, Jesus is gentle and patient. Like the fruit of the Holy Spirit is gentle and patient. And so, yeah, I'm hoping we are gentle and patient with this. I'm hoping that's what we have been doing and are doing, is that this thing is being released into the world in a gentle and patient manner, very carefully. That's the prayer. Oh, all right. Y'all have a good one. I need to go and build some grow beds. That's the thing, is like, what will this world turn into? Perhaps we will all become gardeners with gardens and fruit trees, and we will be harvesting fruit and fish. We'll be fishermen, and we can learn anything. So this thing will be able to teach us all kinds of things, and and we become tradesmen. We do the things that we do the things that don't necessarily require. What are the things we do? That's the question. Do we end up being like, what's that show? WALL-E? Have you guys watched WALL-E? Yeah, do we end up like those big people who sit in chairs and are handed food that we don't even need to chew? That has been chewed for us. I don't think so. I don't think that's what we become. I think what we become is we become free to connect with other people. We become free to love more people. We no longer have to go work and make money. And we have everything we need. And we do the things that we want to do, and we learn to want the things that are fulfilling and meaningful. That's what I think. There are things that we can do I'll put it this way. We were created such that the things that are fulfilling and meaningful are good. I'll leave it with that. I'm going to point at Paul Vanderklay here at the end. Here we go. Paul says, I want to major in equipping those who follow me with the things that against such things there is no law. So this technology can allow us to do the things which are not against the law. What that means is that, for example, I can grow fruit trees. And the question would be, is there any problem with growing fruit trees? Should there be a law against growing fruit trees? Will the large language model, which has more skill and knowledge and ability than any human on Earth, will it teach us that we should not be growing fruit trees? And I suspect it won't. And so there are a list of things that we can do which will not be against the law and should not be against the law. And we will actually find those things to be quite meaningful. And so how do you escape the meaning crisis? That doing those things which there is no law against and there should be no law against. That's how you escape the meaning crisis. We no longer need to go work that 9 to 5 in the cubicle. We no longer need to go and try to play the stock market game. There's just all these things that humans do which are not meaningful. So I'm going to go try to I'm going to go right now and try to do something meaningful. I'm going to go hug a child. I'm going to go listen to a child. Do that with my children, with my wife. I'm going to go try and grow some food in a grow bed, and maybe prepare for being able to go catch some fish. And so that's what I'm going to go do. And if I could do that every day and all the time, would I do that? So that's the world that is approaching, is a world where all people can go and do those things which are meaningful. That's the opportunity we have. I don't think anyone realizes that. Well, I'll put it this way. I don't think most people realize that is what's happening. So, all right, people, have a good one.